Hello guys. So today we will be discussing a very important topic from plant physiology class 11 syllabus. Okay. So the topic is plant growth and development. Okay. So now you might be wondering why we need to sit for this class. What am I going to get from sitting in this class, right? The answer is very simple. This chapter is very important for NEET preparation because in every NEET exam, one or two questions is compulsorily asked from this chapter. Okay. And also around 4 to 8 marks you will get from this chapter. So this chapter is very, very important. So this chapter can be divided into two parts. Okay. So the first part is mostly conceptual, which we can understand with a little bit of effort. And the second one is fully theoretical part, which we need to memorize a little bit and also understand a bit. Okay. So that's all about why we need to focus on this chapter. Now, before we go into this chapter further, I want to ask you a very curious question. Okay. So, from our young days itself, we would have been wondering that all the animals, including us, we have a certain age. Okay. We have a certain age where our growth will completely stop. Okay. Whereas plants, on the other hand, keeps on growing till it dies. It shows a kind of growth. For example, if you take some pine trees, okay, which is in the forest, they grow up to 100 meters, 200 meters, like that. But whereas humans cannot grow like that. After a certain age, the growth is completely stopped. So why? Why is this particularly plants can grow till their lifetime, but animals cannot grow? So this question you would have had in your mind, right? So in this chapter, if you learn sincerely, you will understand why plants show such kind of growth, which is called as open form of growth. Okay, why it is called open form? Because plants for its entire lifetime can grow. So that's why it's called as open form of growth, whereas animals will not exhibit such kind of open form of growth. But we should know the reason why. Okay, why plants show open form, whereas animals doesn't show open form. Okay, so those things I'll come when we go with the subsequent slides. Okay. Okay, so now the chapter name is Development in Plants, right? So what is this development? Development is a very simple term which is referring to the plant's overall development right from germination to senescence. Germination, the starting point of its life, senescence, that is old age. So till the plant grows and dies, the entire period is considered to be development. Okay. In this development, there are two parts. One is growth, another one is differentiation. So two parts are always present in development. So all the two parts will be covering in detail. Okay, now first part is growth, plant growth. So that's what we're going to discuss here. Okay. So the first question is plant growth reversible or irreversible? So this might look silly, like whether plant growth could be reversed or irreversible. Okay. But I'll tell you a simple example to make you understand this. In winter time, the wood, okay, generally you would have seen the door wood and all, it will get swollen. So that's why the doors cannot close properly. Okay. So wood is a living material, right? So it gets swollen during the winter time. Say it grows by 2 to 3 centimeter extra. Okay. Then during summer, it will shrink back. So that's why we will be able to close it properly. So can we consider this also as growth? Since growth is nothing but increase in dimension, right? Increase in height, width, something like that. So can this swelling of wood be considered a growth? Or the normal plant, as you see in this image, you can see a normal plant growing. So can we consider this normal plant growth as a growth? So the answer is very simple, guys. The wood growth, which you can see, is reversible. Okay. So during winter, the breadth increased, and during summer, it decreases. Right. So it is a reversible. Growth is never reversible. It is always irreversible. Once a plant grows to certain height, say for example from 5 centimeter, the plant grows to 7 centimeter. It is an irreversible growth. It cannot return back to 5 centimeter. So plant growth is always irreversible. Okay. Okay. Now let's go on to the second question. I asked you in the beginning of the chapter that plants can grow till the end of its life, but animals cannot grow. So that is what this question is asking. Is plant growth indeterminate? The answer is yes. We cannot determine till what age or till what year the plant is going to grow. Okay, the plant can exhibit growth throughout its lifetime. So that is why it is called as indeterminate growth, or it is also called open form of growth. Now you might be asking, okay, what is this open form of growth? Okay, so what is this open form of growth? Okay, so this is open form of growth is because of the cells called meristematic cells, which I'll be talking in the next slide. Okay, okay, just a minute. Sorry for this. Okay. Now we will talk about this meristematic cells. So now we'll talk about this meristematic cells. These cells are responsible for the open form of growth. As we discussed, what is open form of growth last. So now we will talk what makes it an open form of growth. The answer is meristematic cells. Meristematic cells are actively dividing cells. Okay, they are actively dividing cells and they will keep on dividing. Okay, and they are unspecialized cells. They don't have any particular function. For example, they are not like leaf cells or root cells, something like that. They are just like stem cells. Okay, you would have learned about stem cells, right? Stem cells are like pluripotent. They can multiply, they can divide, but they don't have any special function unless and until they undergo differentiation. Same concept here also. These meristematic cells are undifferentiated cells and they keep on dividing. Okay, they will be keep on dividing. So that you have to remember. Now, based upon the location where these meristematic cells are present, we can divide them into apical meristem and lateral meristem. The apical, the word itself says something like a tip or a point. Okay, so in plant, as you can see in this image, right? So in the tips of shoot, the tip of stem, also in the tip of root, you will have this apical meristems. So shoot apical meristem, which is called as SAM, and also root apical meristem. Okay, RAM. Okay, so you can remember like this. SAM and RAM are present in the apical regions of shoot and root, and they are responsible for the primary growth. Primary growth is nothing but growth in the height of the plant. Okay, elongation, that is primary growth. Now there is another meristem I told you, which is the lateral meristem, which is present in the lateral sides of the plant. Okay, so that is responsible for secondary growth or the bark formation. So you would have seen in dicot plants, for example, neem tree, mango tree. So all these trees have thick barks because of lateral meristems. Okay. So we have apical meristem, lateral meristem. Apical meristem, that is SAM and RAM, are responsible for primary growth, and lateral meristem is responsible for secondary growth. Okay. So this is the definition of meristematic cell and the types of meristematic cells. Okay, so now we learned what is open form of plant growth and why or what makes it open form of growth. What cells make it open form of growth? So all those things we covered in the previous slide. Now let us go for a simple question. How can we measure plant growth? How we are going to measure the growth? Because growth is quantitative. It is not a qualitative factor, right? So it is quantitative. We can measure it. We can see it with our naked eye. We can measure it. So that is why it is a quantitative parameter. So the first one is increase in length. So whenever a plant is growing from say 2 centimeter to 3.5 centimeter, okay, so that increase in length is considered as a measurement of plant growth. Second one, increase in biomass. Okay, we all know what is biomass, weight, grams or kilograms. Okay, it could be dry weight or fresh weight. Dry weight in the sense after removing all the moisture content, what is the biomass of the plant, that is dry weight, and also fresh weight is including moisture. Okay, so we can consider the weight difference. For example, if the plant is having 2.5 grams, okay, then after few weeks, it has become 3.5. So it is a growth. It is a sign of growth. Okay. So always remember the dry weight is always accurate than the fresh weight, because in dry weight, we are removing the moisture. So we will get an accurate weight of the plant compared to the fresh weight. And also we can consider increase in area, surface area we can measure, right? Meter square or centimeter square. And also increase in cell number, which could be done by using microscopic tests. And also we can go for increase in cell size, that is volume. Okay, cell expansion, growth in volume. So all these things could be considered as measurements of growth. And also growth rate could also be taken into account, which we will be discussing in the next slides. Okay, so before we go to growth rate, I will tell you what are the three important stages of plant growth. Okay, there are three major steps. First one is meristematic phase. Second one is elongation phase. And third one is the maturation phase. Now, meristematic phase is nothing but here we already discussed about meristematic cells, right? Actively dividing and unspecialized cells. So these cells will keep on dividing because of mitosis and the cell number will increase. Okay, so that is the first phase. After increasing in cell number, what will happen? The cells will start to elongate. So we already know plants have vacuole. Okay, so the vacuolation will take place. That is, a vacuole surface area will increase. Thereby, the cell length will also increase. So it is like elongating the cells. So if you elongate the cells, the size of the plant also will increase. So that is how cell enlargement, that is vacuole expansion, takes place. And finally, after it has grown, okay, it has to mature, because without performing any function, the cell is considered to be dead, right? So it's not like simply the cell keeps on dividing. It has to perform a specific role. For example, leaf cells perform photosynthesis, right? So like that, it has to perform a specific role. So for that, you have to undergo cell differentiation, which also we'll be talking in the subsequent slides. Okay, so before going to the differentiation part, we have to complete the growth. So for completing the growth, we have to understand growth rate. Okay, we have to understand growth rate. Now, what is this rate? What is rate? Rate is always with respect to time factor, right? So with respect to time, if you talk anything, that is rate. For example, you say I drove 60 kilometer per hour speed. So speed is a rate, right? Kilometer per hour. Because we are talking with respect to time. So it is a rate. Similarly, growth also can be measured with respect to time. With respect to time, how much growth has taken place? How much centimeter it has grown? 5 centimeter per 2 weeks. 5 centimeter per 5 days. Something like that. Okay. So that is all about growth rate. Now in growth rate, we have two kinds. One is arithmetic growth rate. Next one is geometric growth rate. Okay. So we have arithmetic growth rate and also we have geometric growth rate. So now, okay, let me explain about arithmetic growth rate in the cellular level. At cellular level, what is happening? Okay, cellular level, I'll tell you what is happening. Okay, and also I'll tell you in the mathematical form, which is very easy to understand because we're going to see a graph for it. So first I'll explain this in the cellular level. It's very simple. So first, let us assume we have two cells here, right? We have two cells here. So in this two cell, uh, let us assume that one cell is dividing. Okay, one cell is dividing into two cells because it is a mitosis process, right? One cell will become two, two cells will become four. So it goes like that. So the first cell is getting converted or it is divided into two cells, and the second cell is differentiated. It doesn't undergo mitosis. It undergoes differentiation and it becomes specialized. That is why you see a light blue color here. Okay. Now, among these two cells, in the second step, this is the first step. Now, coming to the second step, here among these two cells, only one cell will divide. The remaining cell will undergo differentiation. That's why you say two differentiated cells are here, and only one cell became two cells. Again, among these two cells, only one cell will undergo division, and the remaining cells became differentiated. So, in all the cases, only one cell will undergo mitotic division, and the other cells will undergo differentiation. So this is the arithmetic growth rate, and you would obviously know that the growth rate is constant here because one cell becoming two, one cell becoming two. So the growth rate is fixed. That is why we are getting a linear graph here, right? So you get a linear graph. So you're getting a linear graph. Okay, so you have to remember this. So this is a graph. So let us assume this is the height of the plant, and with respect to time, we have plotted the graph. So this is the equation you can infer from this. LT is equal to L naught plus RT. LT is nothing but length at any particular point of time. L naught is the initial length. Okay, time is the duration of time, and R is the slope. Okay, R is the slope we will get from the graph. Okay, so it is of the form y is equal to mx plus c. So this you would have learned in your mathematics. So it is a linear graph where the slope is the growth rate. So if you plot this graph and if you take the slope, you will get the growth rate for that particular plant. Okay, I hope this is clear. Okay, I hope this is clear for you. Next, let's go on for the next topic. The geometric growth rate. Okay, so now in this geometric growth rate, what you can observe is very simple. Here, let us assume we have two cells here. Okay, we are having two cells, and both the cells will undergo mitotic division. Okay, the first cell giving rise to two cells, and the second cell giving rise to two cells. And now each cell will undergo mitotic division. Can you see? Each cell is undergoing mitotic division. So like this, it is progressing like this. So that's why it's called a geometric growth rate or exponential growth rate. You cannot fix. Okay, so that's why it's happening, and also there is no differentiation taking place. Okay, it is always keep on dividing. So now in this geometric growth rate, we have this graph. As you can see, this graph is sigmoidal in nature. It has a lag phase, it has an exponential phase, and it has a stationary phase. So the cells will not keep on dividing. After some nutrient depletion, it will undergo a stationary phase like this. Okay, so this is the geometric growth rates graph. And also you have to remember this formula. W1 is equal to W naught e power minus RT. It's an exponential curve. That's why we're using a natural log here. And the R, the exponential R is the growth rate. Okay. So I hope this geometric growth rate is also very clear to you. So in this growth rate, we have three important phases. There is a lag phase, log phase, and the stationary phase. So most of the NEET questions will revolve around this graph. Either they will ask you, they'll give you the graph and ask you what is this growth rate, or they might ask you what is W1, W0, something like that, or they might ask you to explain something. Okay, even for arithmetic growth rate. Okay, so these growth rates are mostly asked in the NEET examinations. I hope it is clear. Okay. Okay, so now let's go for the differentiation part and then we will wind up the chapter. Okay, so now this is the confusion zone for many students. Okay, this is the major confusion zone. Why it is a confusion zone? Because students tend to confuse among differentiation, de-differentiation, and re-differentiation. Okay, so these three terms is a little confusing for students, but here a lot of questions are asked from this topic itself. Okay, so therefore it is easy to understand. I'll explain you what it is. So first, let us take one example and then we will continue. First, we are taking an example of a carrot. Okay, so you have planted a carrot, you have got a carrot. Now, you are thinking, okay, why can't I replant the carrot into the soil and check what is happening? So when you take the carrot, okay, the vegetable carrot, and then you plant it in the soil and you water it, after a few days, there'll be some green leaves growing over it. Okay, and also you can see roots growing from the outer from the carrot. So if you leave it for a few more days, seeds, flowers and seeds will be produced, and subsequently you can plant those seeds for getting high yield of carrot. Okay, so this is how generally when you want to replant something, or if you don't want to waste your unused vegetable, you can try such experiments at home. Okay, now I'll tell what is differentiation, de-differentiation, and re-differentiation with the example of this. Here, what happens is this carrot, okay, this carrot has a specialized cells, okay, which is called storage parenchyma cells. Okay, this carrot has storage in it. That's why the carrot has grown, right? So it has a storage parenchymatic cells in it. So the meristematic cells of the plant have been differentiated into the carrot cells. That's why you have got a carrot, right? So this is called differentiation, something specialized. So it is a parenchymatic cells which is present in the carrot. So that is what is called as differentiation. That is from the meristematic to a specialized stage. That is differentiation. Now, de-differentiation, that is you want to grow again. That's why you have planted the carrot. Now, what the carrot will do? The carrot will convert its parenchymatic cells into meristematic cells so that the cells will divide. As you can see in the image, the cells will divide. So then only the growth will happen, right? So it is called de-differentiation. That is coming from specialized stage to unspecialized stage. That is de-differentiation. Now, coming to the third point, re-differentiation. So after it has become meristematic and it has started growing, again, what happens? The meristematic cells has to come back to parenchymatic cells. Then only it will grow into a carrot again, right? So that is called as re-differentiation. So I'll explain again. So differentiation is nothing but from meristematic to specialized stage. Now suppose the plant wants to grow again because growth is indefinite in plant. Plant will be keep on growing. So once differentiated also plant will grow. So that differentiated phase will come back to meristematic phase, that is called de-differentiation. And re-differentiation is after it has grown, again it has to become specialized. So because cells needs to be specialized to perform function. So that is called re-differentiation. So first differentiation, de-differentiation, and then re-differentiation. Now let's keep a small test. So I've given you the three processes. You have to name what it is. Okay, you can take your time. So I'll talk about the first question. Name the process where the mature permanent cells regain the ability to divide. So here I'm talking about mature cells becoming again meristematic. So the answer is de-differentiation. Second question. Name the process where the meristematic cells become specialized. So here what we are talking about, here the meristematic cells have become specialized. Okay, from dividing state, it has become to a permanent state. So it is a differentiation step. Exactly. Now coming to the third step. Name the process where de-differentiated cells again become specialized. So here itself we can see the keyword de-differentiated cells. That means it has already become meristematic. Okay. Now it again wants to go back to specialized state. So that means it is a re-differentiation stage. Okay. Okay, guys. So with this, we are winding up the first section of this topic. Now I will, there are around 10 questions I have given for your understanding. So you can take a break of around 10 minutes and then you can start solving this. Okay. So if you have any doubt with respect to these questions, you can always pop it up to me. Okay. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. So see you all soon. Bye.